Okay, well, a very warm welcome to everyone who is joining us for a conversation that I have been so excited to host and to invite you into getting up close and personal with my dear friend and collaborator, Yasushi Kinoshita. Um, Yasushi is one of my very favorite people in the entire world, and we'll get to talk a little bit about why in just a moment. I am Rachel Hodgdon. I'm your host and president and CEO of IWBI, and welcome to the next installment of IWBI's Well Executive webcast series. To those that are new to this series showcases leaders highlighting members of our governance council who know that when their people thrive, so too will their businesses. Leaders who acknowledge that achieving peak performance requires self-care, and modeling that self-care sets the tone for their organizations. If you're not familiar with the Governance Council, it's an amazing group of powerhouse leaders, doctors, public health professionals, academics, business executives, all of whom are responsible for helping us to uphold the rigor and integrity of the WELL standard. Our council members also provide our team at IWBI with invaluable guidance as we seek to accelerate market transformation at a global scale. So before we kick off with my special guest, I'd like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsor, Daikin, leading innovation in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation technology for over 100 years. Without your generous support, this interview and the Well Executive Platform simply wouldn't be possible. So a big thank you to our friends at Daikin. So let's get right into it. I am thrilled to welcome Yasushi Kinoshita of Eminence Partners and Green Building Japan, a dedicated member of our governance council. He's got a background in real estate and global experience in investment firms and Japanese commercial banks with over $10 billion invested in real estate ventures. So Yasushi knows a thing or two about leadership, and he knows a lot about integrity. So today we want to hear from all of you. So as you have questions, please put them into the Q&A box and I'll try and sprinkle them in throughout our conversation. So Yasushi, welcome. Nice to connect with you.
Hi, Rachel. Well, thank you for your very warm and kind introduction. I'm so thrilled to join today's, webinar, and I'm so energized. So looking forward to it.
Same here. And where are you dialing in from? I see that we've got folks dialed in from all over the world on this webinar, but where are you dialed in from today?
I'm calling from like Tokyo, Japan. So it's 10 in the evening. So now I can see like really morning sunlight out there, but my case, it's already dark outside.
Well, thank you for staying up late for us.
Oh, 10 o'clock is okay. If you were
Okay,
like
10's
at
not
2 in
late
the
for you.
morning, that's a bit tough, but 10 is fine for me.
All right. Very good. I would never be able to do a webcast, I think, at 10 p.m. So I thank you for that. Yasushi, I wanted to start with an important question, one that I've been meaning to ask you for some time now, which is why are you so happy? Every time I see you, you're this like ball of energy, you're cheerful, you are always optimistic. I would go so far as to use the word jolly. And then every time you walk out of a room, everybody goes, I love that guy. So what is it that's making you so happy? Where's that inner source of joy coming from you?
Well, I changed the way I live around 50s because I worked really hard in financial industry, which is really tough business. And when I got to 50, I was so exhausted. And I told my lovely wife, honey, I'm gonna quit. So I just quit what I did at the time without having any future plan. So thereafter, I finally could have like work-life balance well. Before that, work was work, 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 almost 100% work. No family, work. But now I have a really balanced life. And also I started working non-profit organization, Green Building Japan. So I have so many things to care, and that gives me a lot of energy, and
Mm.
also people around me, uh, including yourself, Rachel, because I'm surrounded by wonderful people. I
Yeah.
could get energy from all those people, and
Yeah.
that's how I keep myself happy.
Yeah, and the anatomy of a high performing, employee or a high performing executive, what you're talking about, the story you're telling translates into a sense of belonging and a sense of community, and also a sense of purpose in your work. And like you said, it wasn't always that way.
Mm.
So, you made this huge choice to take this big career and just drop it. And you didn't just quit, you quit without a plan. That was how burnt out you were. And in the United States, there's often a joke when people leave their jobs. They say, "Oh, I'm quitting to spend more time with my family," which is usually a euphemism for like somebody laid me off from this job. And clearly, that is not what happened to you. You actually meant it. Your kids were young at the time, and you said you really wanted to enjoy them while they were still young. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that period of time after you quit did for your own health and well-being?
Yeah, I spent a year and a half after I quit for almost like doing no businesses. So I spent all the time with my family. That was really precious because I have two boys, and the elder one was around 10, and the
Mm,
younger one was around 8.
mm,
So I thought, and also with my wife, that was the last time I can play around them because
mm.
otherwise they get too old and we cannot play around. Well, of course, although we're playing around even today, but we didn't think that way at the time. So I spent a lot of time with the family, and also I was looking into the sustainability in the built environment at the time. So, and in extension of that, I started learning about well-being in the built environment. So that year and a half gave me a lot of opportunity to dig into those two things. So and also I had a lot of good foods, and I could have a white wine at the noon with my wife. That was really precious.
I love
So
I love a good day drink. I want to
yeah.
come back to the new, more fulfilling career path that you found yourself on after 50. But I want to also key into something that you said to me recently, which is when you quit your job, which was a very bold thing to do, your kids noticed a change in you. What did they say
Yeah,
to you after you quit your job?
yeah, because I spend more time with our kids, and they said to me like, "Dad, you started smiling." So I was like shocked, to be honest, because I never thought I was not a smiling father at all. But from their perspective, I was not smiling. So
Mm,
that was a very eye-opening statement by
mm,
themselves, and 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 they said, "Dad, you're okay now. You're
yeah.
smiling."
Oh,
And
it's so
that
beautiful.
was, I thought, my bold decision was right.
I became a parent 2 years ago this spring, and it has totally reformed me, not just as, not just in my personal life and not just by way of becoming a parent, but it's made me into a different kind of leader, into a different kind of executive. And I'm interested to know when you look back, now that your sons are mostly grown,
Yeah.
um, grown is a
18,
relative term.
19 and 19 and 17, so almost all grown.
Almost grown. The bank of dad is almost closed. But I'm curious to know how parenthood has shaped your trajectory as a leader.
Good question. Because when the first boy was born, that was, as you just pointed out, it was changing the world. The way I see the world was changed totally. And if I look back today, that is one of the reason I start jumping into the sustainability and well-being in the built environment, because what we are doing is to keep this world, this earth, globe for next generations. But
Mm,
I never had the perspective like that way, so that changed the way. I operate
Mm,
quite much.
mm. Let's talk about the way that you operate for a moment, because I want to make sure that this group is grounded in what your day job or day jobs truly are. So tell us just a little bit about your work and your responsibilities at Eminence, and then tell us a little bit about your work at the Green Building Council in Japan.
Okay. So my company, well, our company is the right way because I founded the company along with two good friends. And this is a firm focusing on the investment management services for foreign institutional investors investing into Japan. So basically, we found out the good investment opportunities and introduced the opportunities to our clients. And if they like it, they buy in. And we manage the properties for them and we sell out and create the return for them. So that's my job. So I receive a lot of emails from outside of Japan in English, and they are in the different time zones. So like working for 24 hours is like my job. And also, as long as the assets are intact, I cannot forget about that entirely. So
Yeah.
always the asset we manage is in my radar screen.
Mm, mm. As a part of prepping for this webcast, I went back and read the comments that you delivered during our Pechakucha storytelling series at the
Hmm.
recent Well Summit in Tokyo. And you talked about your work really centering around the proposition of ESG related investing. I'm curious because that was about what, a year ago now. I'm curious to know how that's evolved. In the US, as you know, ESG in some circles has become something of a four-letter word. And a lot of global companies have said that, they're going to keep doing the right things, but they're going to talk about it less. They're going to talk about it differently. They've rebranded the way that they talk
Hmm.
about many of these efforts. And that's the best case scenario. I think that I also see a lot of companies saying, we're going to keep doing those things and talk about them less. But what I actually see is that they're doing less of those things and talking about it less. So I'm curious to know what's happening in Japan. Is engagement around ESG waning? Are people going underground with their commitments? Or is this alive and well as a concept in Japan?
I think the excuse me. I think the big shift in US hasn't affected Japan yet,
Mm,
to be honest. And still, ESG, so-called investing, is a viable word in
yeah.
Japanese financial people because Japan has a lot of huge pension funds. The
Mm,
largest pension fund in the world is the Japanese government pension fund, and they are committing that every investment they make will be ESG investing
yeah.
and haven't changed that at all. So, well, I feel using like word ESG these days, but not here in Japan at all.
I love to hear that. And I want to come back to a bit more in the way of what's happening within the Japanese market
Mhm.
specifically. But let's start with how you got engaged with the community of people in Japan that are advocating for healthier, more sustainable buildings. One of the things I really appreciate about the building council there is that from the almost the beginning, and I think you've played a big role in this, they've seen green buildings and healthy buildings as a yes and not an either or, and have really advocated for those dual and balanced strategies. You came to this proposition around sustainability by way of one of your German institutional investor clients. Is that right?
Yes,
Uh,
because when I
yeah,
was
how did that come to be?
because when I was working for that German fund, their fund name is Union Investment, and
Mm,
they invested a lot of money in Japanese properties, particularly in Tokyo. And the engineer came to Japan, and I attended him, and he asked me a lot of questions about, okay, Yasushi, why they're using aluminum sash? It's illegal in Europe. Well, not in Japan though.
mm,
And then he asked so many questions about insulation of the wall and etc. etc. So I had no clue why he was asking those questions. And I dig into the webs and found out, okay, climate change is a big deal. And the
Mm.
sustainability and the reducing GHG emission is really crucial. That was around 2012 because we had no clue whatsoever about climate change or GHG gas emission back then in Japan at all. So
Mm.
that's how I got to know that because it was coming from Germany.
Amazing. And during your time at Green Building Japan, you have really shifted the way that Green Building Japan approaches its work.
Mhm.
You're the new guy, the finance dude coming in from the outside. You don't come from this world of sustainable building. And you saw an organization with a really important mission, but one that was focused on advancing that mission through more grassroots efforts. And you saw an issue with scale there. Like you looked at that and said, I don't see how these efforts will translate into the change that we want to see on the timeline that we're seeing it. What was that like? You said the conversations were not always pleasant. Uh,
Yeah.
what did that process look like of changing the hearts and minds to really shift to a bit more of a corporate and business focused strategy?
Well, obviously, the Green Building Japan is organization not for profit.
Yeah.
So it's not like the fund I worked for. If that were the fund, if I were a big honcho, I can tell people, okay, get these things done. But the non-profit organization is not like that because
Right.
everybody is basically equal. So you have to convince people to change the trajectory. And I was a big believer of the scale because, well, I, I thought what I was doing was right. So I really wanted to do good things big time. So in order to do so, you have more voice and also you have more money, you have more impact. And in
Mm,
order to do so, we have more support from corporate members. So that's what I thought. So I spent a lot of time to talk with the people in Green Building Japan, and and I think I had really strong passion for that,
yeah.
and then convince them to change the direction. Some people didn't like that, but at the end of the day, I think most of the people agreed upon the direction and we could change the course of action quite smoothly.
And
Well,
it's worked
but
today.
it was tough.
It was tough, but it's worked today. Just in a few years, Japan Green Building has seen more than 90 corporate members sign on.
Yes, now we have almost now 90 companies as our
Wow.
members. We're trying to achieve the 100 shortly.
Amazing. You have referred to your work to change minds and change hearts as um, answering the question for yourself of how to be contagious. You said that as you've reflected upon your effectiveness as a leader, you keep coming back to this question of how to be contagious.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the ways in which you are trying to be contagious is to convince the different stakeholders that you work with, whether it's in your day job or in your volunteer job, about the return on investment of healthy buildings. Um, and let's talk a little bit about how you approach that notion of
Mhm.
turn on investment. In fact, let's do a little bit of role playing. Um,
Okay.
One question I've heard 100 different ways since I started IWBI is this question of what is the ROI of a well-certified building? And of late, the question has shifted from what is the ROI of a well-certified building to what is the ROI of my well-certified building? But let's just pretend that you're walking into the office of the CEO of a bank. I'm going to play that CEO. And I want
Okay.
to
Well,
know,
it sounds really terrible, you know.
yeah, I want to know like,
Uh,
Sushi-san, why are you here? to try and convince me to do something differently with all of my offices and all of my bank branches and all of my consultants. I've read this plan. Seems like a lot of change. Seems like a big distraction from a lot of the things that we're working on. I need to focus on getting real results. What's the return on investment of what you're proposing?
Good question, because the return on investment of well-considered building in the well-being is will create a significant return on investment, because we had horrible 4 years under COVID-19, and then people started working from home. So now your office is competing against people's home, and without having the really attractive environment in the workplace, not necessarily only a physical state, including other mental state and also clear air and also the, good sound acoustic and all those things. Without having that, you cannot attract excellent talent. The people
Mm.
can quit. I'm sure as a CEO, you're telling people that, okay, guys, you guys should show up 5 days a week in the
Get your
office.
butts in the seats is what I like to tell them.
But obviously, really talented people in your organization, they can they can choose whatever they want. You cannot force people to come to the office and sit 8 hours. So you have to, you know, be ready to attract your talent and retain your talent in the organization. And think about like a rental expenses you're paying compared to the wages and also absentees, losses, and also the health insurance premium you're paying. If you have energized, focused, and healthy employee portfolio, you create the great creativity and efficiency, and the performance would be wonderful. So think
Mm.
about that. Compared to that result, the rental increase is nothing. So
Mm.
that's how you characterize the return on investment from being in the great buildings, paying a lot of attention to well-being.
Mm. Well, I'm sold. Please go see my secretary to sign on the dotted line. I'm gonna break character. I'm obviously not an actress, but I love your positioning of the prospect of healthy buildings and healthy workplaces as a recruitment strategy. And that's particularly important right now in Japan for different reasons than it is taking on a new level of importance in the US. Talk about why competition for talent is so fierce in Japan right now and why that makes the healthy building proposition resonate.
Because there are a couple of reasons for that. Because the first one is obviously the younger generation, the millenniums and Generation Zs are all same in the world, and they are very uh, focused on their own values. So after the COVID, during the COVID, people started working from home, so they learn, the preciousness of having more time at home. And also, Tokyo is really crowded city, and you're packed into the crowded train, and you're treated like boxes and coming to the office. If you can skip that, your life will be better than before. So that's one of the reason that work from home is getting really traction here.
Mm,
And having said that, face-to-face interaction provides a lot of information for both sides of the people, unlike video conference. So if companies can provide a really attractive office, people start feeling like, oh, I would like to come to the office.
mm,
Then that's a very strong attraction for new recruiting and at the same time retention of the
mm,
existing talent. And the good news is that the manager of the general affairs used to be handling the office leasing, but We have about 30% work from home ratio in Japan, and but we still have really high occupancy in office. Like Central Tokyo, it's only like 90, the vacancy is like 2%,
Yeah.
unlike US major cities. So what's happening is what happened is 30%, like increase of the work from home. What happening is the CEO and HR officers are trying to expand per capita size of the office to make the office better. So
Yeah.
those are the things happening in Japan right
Yeah,
now.
those things I think are really similar to what we're seeing in the US and in other places around the world. I was touring a Well Platinum certified headquarters of an international bank, one of the largest in the world. And I asked their head of facilities, do you have a sense of what this new space has done for recruitment of talent? And he said, we view this building as one giant tool for recruiting, and people
Mhm.
are leaving other banks in downtown New York in droves simply because they want to be in this space. And because I was in that space, I can say you could feel that. That's another way that you could be contagious, I suppose you could say, is to help people to experience how different that place or that space is. But Japan also has a declining population.
Exactly, that's the point because we are one of the most aging society in the world. So we're losing working populations, unfortunately. So the competition by the companies to recruit the talented people is quite tough.
Yeah,
So money is not the only ammunition you can
yeah,
have. And
yeah,
sometimes money is not the top priority for really talented people. So
right.
as that big bank said, like, okay, this whole building is like a strong ammunition. The same thing is happening in Japan to survive in the tough, decreasing population competition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's fascinating, and it's kind of a leading example of what other economies, including the US, are likely to
Mhm.
face in the future as well, with a shrinking workforce.
Right.
I want to talk about a few other things that are unique to the Japanese market.
Okay.
Um, and in particular, I'm really curious, especially having visited Japan for the first time last year. Um, how wellness translates into Japanese culture. Talk a little bit about the notions of wellness that are deeply rooted or embedded in Japanese culture that make this leap to wellness in buildings more of a natural one.
Okay. Well, in that regard, the well-being concept has been embedded into Japanese culture without noticing that that's a well-being because people didn't notice the concept that well-being for a long time. But for instance, Japanese building, as particularly housing, is built by wood and paper for long. So the boundary building boundary between inside and outside is really vague and ambiguous. So that is providing the connection to nature where you live, and also that will provide like tranquility in your life and the biophilic perspective. But we didn't know all those terms, but that was rooted in the culture,
Yeah.
and that is now embedded into the modern Japanese design work. Not
Mm.
100%, but still a lot of them are still surviving in the Japanese urban development, like direct sunlight and also spacious garden. And so those are the things still embedded into the modern design work in Japan.
Mm. I think what's interesting that you've talked about, and I've definitely observed in my travels to Japan, is that there is this return to an ancient wisdom, but there's also that also implies that there was a break from that wisdom for a
Mhm.
period of time. And, when a lot of Western ideals around work and productivity and real estate, for that matter, really started to um, dominate a lot of the modern expressions of architecture and the modern expressions of the workplace, for that matter. Um, it seems, according to you, that that Japanese people strayed further away from this like deep understanding about their relationship to nature. And now it seems like access to nature is making a comeback in the workplace, even in a city that is
Right.
as dense as Tokyo. People are finding ways to bring nature indoors or to increase views or access to nature outside. So tell us a little bit about that, like what prompted the break in the first place and what's drawn people back to that um, shared wisdom and experience.
I think, as you pointed out, one time, Japanese society moved toward really a Western style uh, way of doing things. And having said that, because Japan is a disaster country, because we have earthquake, and also we have volcanoes, we have typhoons. So we have the strong feeling toward nature, because the nature wild nature is sometimes very harsh,
Mm,
and we often notice that. So we should, have a feeling that, okay, we need to live with nature. We
mm, mm,
cannot fight against nature. We cannot win the war against nature. And I think it's a personal opinion, but the people notice that, okay, we should live with nature. And even like big cities, we should absorb that concept into the built environment. And that is how things were changed in certain time, I think.
mm, mm.
And
Um,
particularly when the large scale development is made, you just cannot build the buildings only. And a lot of open space will be there, because the building is getting taller and taller. So the area wise, you have more spacious, ground, and that
mhm,
will provide more opportunities for you to get reconnected to nature.
mhm, mhm. Um, I love to see the way that that trend is um, making itself visible in Japan with some like really extraordinary examples of old world architecture and new world architecture and indoor spaces becoming more and more indistinguishable from outdoor spaces. And yeah, can't recommend highly enough a trip to Japan to see some of that emotion. Joyce Lee, who's on the line, has a really, I think, interesting question for you about
Okay.
another way in which Japanese culture is evolving or perhaps returning to more of its traditions and mores. She wants to know how gender equity and diversity in the workforce is advancing in Japan today. And is that being reported as a component of ESG?
Unfortunately, the gender issue is still a very big issue for Japanese society. And uh, of course, in the face of law, it's an equal treatment is guaranteed. But in reality, it still is not like that way. And having said that, things are getting better because, as we discussed, because we're losing population, and we don't have a luxury to have people like staying home. So now we have a lot of female workforces are working, and it's been like 30 years now. Significant change of regulation occurred. So we see a lot of changes in the past 3 decades, and it will continue.
Mm,
So we
mm,
will have more, female senior executives, and in next 10 years, we will have, we have seen the increase already, but the things will be changing. And with regard to racial diversification, Japan is relatively racial-wise homogeneous country. And religious wise, also it's relatively homogeneous. We have Shinto shrine and also the Buddhist temple, and that's about it. And the Christian is only like 1 or 2% of the entire population.
Yeah.
So we don't see a lot of discrimination based upon religion.
Yeah.
So big issue here is gender equality. So as
Is that reported on as an ESG metric? Increases
yes,
gender
because
diversity?
for example, the Tokyo Stock Exchange requested certain percentage of the senior executive must be female, which
Mm.
is kind of awful, but it's a good big step for Japanese companies, and
Mhm.
also a lot of foreign funds investing into Japanese listed companies are requesting the issuers, like the Japanese companies, to have more gender diversity in their management.
Yep. Yep. I'm always fascinated to think about the difference between sticks and carrots as a strategy for driving market transformation. And it takes both. Like it takes obligating companies to work in a different way and incentivizing companies to work in a different way. I want to come back to how companies are working differently, but I want to stay in our Q&A box for a moment because there's a really good
Okay.
question from Lydia Sevchek, who is a member of our team at IWBI. And Lydia is interested in how work from home as a phenomenon is or isn't shifting the design of Japanese homes and potentially even the size of Japanese homes. I remember one of the things I was so surprised to find out about in Japan is that there's very little entertaining in the home. I mean, I think of the Japanese people as being like masters of hospitality and presentation of food and things like that. But so I was quite surprised to hear that, at least in the cities, there's very little in the way of in-home entertaining. If you want to welcome someone, you arrange a dinner at at a restaurant or a club or something like that. Um, you told me that the main reason why that is the case is because Japanese homes in the cities tend to be quite compact. So they're
Right.
not and modest for that matter. And so they're not necessarily set up for that function. But now I think about the very compact home in Tokyo, and is that a right fit for work from home? Is that evolving with the changing demands of the workplace or home as workplace?
I think in that regard, still the size of the homes are remaining compact, and even worse because the due to the inflation, the price for condominium is increasing significantly. I think in some cases increased like 30 to 50% in past couple of years. So it's really difficult to have a bigger room easily.
Mhm.
So what I noticed is that it's not work from home, but you have like a third place to be in. So like a satellite office
Right.
or a shared
Co-working.
office. Yeah. So that's a more popular in Japan rather working from home because
Right.
if you know husband and wife working uh, together in a compact room and both of them have like a video call, it is impossible.
Boy, can I relate to that. There are so many times when I'm texting my wife, like, could you please keep your voice down? You're interrupting my webcast. And now
Yes.
add a 2-year-old who's running around. But that's really interesting to think about. When we talk about work from home trends in Japan, we're actually talking mostly about work from these third spaces.
Right. And at the same time, some of the newly developed residentials will have like a dedicated shared
Yes.
office space for even for rental residential.
Yeah.
And
In
also,
the
you
building.
can have some sort of small exclusive unit. It's not a room. It's more like tiny thing like this size, but
Right.
it's isolated.
Yep.
So that's
Almost
like
like a slightly larger phone booth. Yeah.
exactly that the new trend I see in the newly build buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that too on my tour.
And even like a station of the metros and railroad,
Yes.
you can have like an interesting the box of the room, and you jump in there,
Yeah, it's
and it's
literally like a box in a
exactly
subway station that you can hop in and pay to take your call.
right. You can make like an internet reservation and just jump in.
Yep. Yep. Fascinating. I want to mix it up a little bit and do a series of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a series of questions and you just give one word or one sentence responses. So
Wow. Okay.
I know this is tough.
I
So
try to be quick.
let's start with this one. One of my favorites. What is your breakfast of champions? What do you eat on a typical day for breakfast to give you a good start?
Corn and tuna salad.
And who is the best executive that you've met along the way in your career?
Rachel.
Okay, that one is a cheat. Another
Okay.
option. Definitely not Rachel. Who is the best that you've witnessed in your career?
Uh it's not I haven't personally met, but Mr. Akio Toyota, the CEO of the Toyota, he's a great leader.
Mm. Um, okay, this one requires a little bit of mental math, but another one of my favorites. The total number of hours that you should sleep minus the total number of hours that you actually sleep. What is the delta between those two?
I think 1 hour.
Okay. How many hours of sleep do you typically get in a night?
Uh 5 hours, 5 hours, 5.5 hours to 6
Okay. And you think you'd be better off at 6.5 to 7?
or 7. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
8 is too
Once
much for me.
I once was speaking to an extremely accomplished advisor and executive coach who had coached some of the CEOs of the largest organizations in the world. And she said, hands down, if I could offer one piece of advice to executives on how to improve their performance, it would be sleep. I've always thought about that because
I
we've really
totally agree.
we've really like um we've extolled these leaders who only sleep for 2 hours or 3 hours a day. And in fact, that's not really a recipe for long-term and
Oh,
sustained.
you cannot do that forever.
No, no, it is not sustainable. And so let's stay on that strand for a moment because um, you and I share a belief that productivity is not a straight line. There's not a direct relationship between how many hours you work in a day and how productive you are. And that's a mistake I hear a lot of leaders in the C-suite make is viewing the number of hours worked as a proxy for productivity.
Mm.
You tend to view productivity as an expression of efficiency. Say a little bit more about that.
Because if you're not focused, if you're not energized, even if you stay in the office for 10 hours, your result is not that great. But if
Mm,
you're energized and well recharged and having a good breakfast and with big smile show up in the office, you can make big difference. So
mhm,
that's how I see the business, particularly uh, if it's like finance or investment. You need focus. You need creativity. So that's not measured by our work hour. So that's how I see it.
mm. I think it's a beautiful prerogative. Um, I am going to hop to one more question in the audience, and here I will out my amazing Chief of Staff, Judith Webb, who celebrated
I noticed.
her birthday yesterday, but she has not followed directions and put her question in the Q&A box, as everyone should. But I'm still going to take the question because I think it's a really good one. And that has to do with AI's place in real estate finance. Of course, the question that everybody wants to talk about these days is what role will AI play in advancing the sector that I'm working in? How do you see AI and some of like where do you see the biggest opportunities for AI to take real estate finance forward?
To be honest, I was surprised by this Judith's question because I'm going to have a fireside chat at ULI Japan's event with AI company's president day
Mm.
after tomorrow.
Very timely.
So I think the AI will play a significant role in real estate because real estate is labor intensive. But in Japan, we have a population, aging population. We have labor issue, labor shortage issue. And also, we have a big data from the tenants. So you can use AI and utilizing big data like tenants' preference, what tenants wants, what's gonna be like a comfortable temperature, what's gonna be like a comfortable lighting, etc. You can build in all those input using big data and create the new development design work. So
Mm,
that's the thing like we can expect from AI, and
mm,
also like managing the environment of the building. You can ask AI to do it rather using like people to monitor the meter and change the bulb, and it's not anymore.
mm.
So
And
I see a lot of AI can play a lot of role in real estate.
absolutely. Are are you using AI already in your day-to-day work or
Yeah,
personal
I'm paying a lot of money to OpenAI and also like Google and Microsoft.
life? So Judith's second question was, what was the last question that you asked ChatGPT or some equivalent platform?
Well, actually, I forgot the detail, but I received some email and I crafted my reply and it didn't sound right. So I put that into ChatGPT and asked for the revision.
Yeah,
And
copy editor ChatGPT.
right,
Yes.
that I often use that
Yeah.
in that way.
Yeah, that's actually some coaching advice that I've started giving some of the people who are my direct reports, who I know spend a lot of time trying to make everything sound right. It's like try putting it into Chat GPT or
Yeah,
your first
yeah.
draft and see if it can improve it. People have mixed results. I guess it comes down to how good your prompts are. Um, Yasushi, I want to spend the last couple of minutes that we have um, just talking a little bit more about why you chose to give some of your precious time to the Governance Council. Um, so I'm curious to know what excited you about the opportunity and the work that you're doing with us. And also, I'd love to know if if something stands out in your mind as like a proudest moment now that you're into your second term with us. What's one of the things that you've helped us to do or advised on that you feel most proud to be a part of?
I think I'm really enjoying being a part of the governance council because the governance council members, everybody's wonderful because they're all great leaders, and I'm so proud of being part of it. So I can talk to all the people from all over the world. It's a great feeling because everybody lives in different countries and different businesses, different perspective, and I'm learning a lot from being part of the governance council. That's the strengths of IWBI because you're using the word international.
Hmm.
So that's that's really strong edge you have as an organization. So your perspective is global, and
Yeah.
the governance council is a body and showing that concept
Yes.
explicitly, and being part of that is honorable. And the very memorable moment is at the Long Beach. We after a long video conference call series, we finally meet in person in Long Beach. And in the morning session, we talked, and that was a very memorable event for me. And
Yeah.
and and
I,
and finally, I could get connected much deeper with members.
one of the first rules that we made when we were convening the first roster of governance council members was that every person on governance council needed to have a day job that was bigger than the work that they were going to be doing with IWBI. Like, we wanted people who, like you, had managed teams of hundreds of people and run organizations and, done huge things to advance their fields as the people sitting closest to us as advisors. And I also remember that in-person governance council meeting that you're talking about, and I won't reveal because that was a very much a closed door conversation, but it wasn't a conversation we were actually scheduled to have. We canned our entire carefully planned agenda because we were feeling like we were up against a crisis, and we closed
Yeah,
that
that was
at
extended from
your
the
help.
previous day dinner. Right.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel so grateful for all of the wisdom and the guidance that you and our other governance council members have given us. And I think that's something I've wanted to come across in these webcasts, is that we rely on you for so much more than just upholding the integrity of WELL, but really upholding the integrity of the work that we do at the Institute. Um, I have one more like big hulking question to ask you before you close, but
Okay.
I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and pose to you the question that has just come in under the wire in our Q&A box from someone who we both know and love, Jack Noonan. And Jack said, if one of us happened to be traveling to Tokyo, what is one building or workplace that you think we must visit, that you think is a great example of a sustainable and healthy place?
Wow, it's hard to choose one because I'm in the real estate industry, and if I choose one, some others may like say,
Favorites.
"Why,
Okay.
sushi, you didn't pick it up." But uh, well, I don't know. Well,
You don't
too
want to choose
difficult.
favorites. Let me give you another option. I'm going to give you a leg
Okay,
on
okay,
this one. Post webcast, if you could provide us with a handful of your favorite examples, we'll publish a Yasushi Does Japan list. And that can also include some parks or spaces that you think we should go to really experience what a connection to outdoors can look and feel like in Japan. It could include some of your favorite restaurants because you are a foodie and a
right.
connoisseur of fine wine. So I'm going to give you a pass on that one. I don't want you to get into trouble with any of your counterparts at Green Building Japan. But we're going to publish a list if you'll work with us of
Okay,
your
so
favorite.
I prepare that one.
Okay, great. And I definitely wanted to put in a plug for anyone who might happen to be going to Tokyo or be in Tokyo already on June 17th to 18th, because we'll be hosting our WELL 2025 Summit on Climate and Health, along with our partners at the U.S. Green Building Council. So please join us, and you'll be there, right?
Yes, I'm really excited, and Green Building Japan is trying to promote the event as much as we can.
Fantastic. Um, So, Yasushi, you've shared so much wisdom with us. And I want to just close with one final question to you.
Okay.
And that is one tip. What is one tip that you would offer to all of us on the line for being a well executive?
The one tip is just being healthy in terms of physically, mentally, economically. And only well-balanced individual can be a good leader.
Mm, mm,
It's
yeah,
hard to be like that, but just try to be.
mm. Yeah, that notion of duality, of balance, of harmony is another thing that I see as being so um, important in Japanese culture. And it's another way in which it feels like a true expression of what we mean when we talk about well-being within our work, well-being within
Yeah,
our work.
it's a holistic thing, so it's not
Yeah,
the one thing. It's they have multiple faces.
amazing. I absolutely love it. Well, Yasushi, I cannot thank you enough. Thank you for staying up, apparently
Well,
not too late for
Rachel,
us.
that was great opportunity for me, and
Thank
I
you.
really enjoyed it.
Liz, who's on the line, Liz Peters, is our secretariat of the Governance Council. And when we were doing a prep session with you, she said, "You're always so quotable." And that is for sure true. So hopefully folks on the line have been taking notes, whether actual notes or mental notes. Thank you for all of the great insights that you have shared and for the infectiousness of your passion. I'd like to once again thank Daikin, whose generous support has made this series and burgeoning platform possible. Here's to the next 100 years of innovation. Before we close, please do be sure to sign up for updates on podcast and webcast releases through the link that we're going to put in the chat. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn and all the other places for updates on Well Executive. And one last thing, mark your calendars for Wednesday, June 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time as we welcome Krisa Pagitsas, CEO of Pagitsas Advisors, on the Well Executive webcast. Wishing you all a wonderful day, and please stay well. Thanks again.